So guys, we are now back to another episode of Resolute TV, Season 3, Episode 2, so that's kind of exciting. We have the ever fabulous Stephen Wells. We basically discovered him, and so enjoy that chat coming up right now. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that. We now have a very special guest from the United States. He's very much pro-marijuana, so this will be super interesting. It's between Dean, so this will be super interesting. Dean heads this interview. Let's check it out.
Righto, as usual, back, Series 3. We've kind of been having a bit of fun in 2021. That's what's happening. We had a bit of a break because, well, fuck, it gets hard trying to take over the world for the greater good. It's a tough job, but people like myself and the amazing Stephen Wells, our author, our activist, our rebel with plenty of causes and plenty of reasonable bloody causes. How you been, mate? What's happening?
Yeah, pretty good. I've been invited to speak all over the place the past few weeks, and getting the word out there and fighting the good fight. I'm down at the polling booths helping out this no mandatory vaccination party here in WA. That's just basically just trying to get the legislation repealed that was passed in 2016 and nothing else. And it's been fun.
Fair enough too, and a reasonable cause, mate. One I'm certainly not against in any way, shape or form. Anybody who thinks government should be mandating anything, let alone what we can take into our bodies or not take into our bodies, is ridiculous. So I'm really glad to see that there are other people standing up and standing strong and standing tall. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the no mandatory vaccination, because mandatory is the key word there?
Yeah, well, quite a lot has happened since this COVID scam first came onto the scene, but long before that was ever in anybody's minds or on the news, back in 2016, WA actually passed the most draconian law anywhere in the world. So it literally states in West Australian law under the Emergency Health Powers Act that an authorised government representative can order you to be arrested, taken from your home, held down, have your clothing removed from you, and then be force medicated, including vaccination against your will. So we've already seen this legislation being used on the testing side of things. So there are a couple of videos up of people coming back to Western Australia, going into the quarantine situation, and then quarantine not being enough for the bureaucrats, even though these people haven't got any symptoms, even though they've been quarantined for 21 days. They've still had people turn up to their doorstep with a couple of uniformed thugs next to the health bureaucrat and basically told, if you do not consent to be having the COVID test, first of all, you may be liable for a fine of up to $50,000, $100,000. And secondly, you have 24 hours to comply. And if you do not comply within the next 24 hours, you may be held down and force tested against your will. So that has happened a couple of times in WA already. And obviously with the COVID vaccination rollout, there is every likelihood that may happen again. So that's the legislation that we're trying to get overturned. And then the other side of things is obviously you've heard various politicians, including our own glorious dictator Mark McGowan, saying that it could be compulsory to have your kids vaccinated if you want them to go to school. You've heard Alan Joyce saying, if you want to travel with Qantas, you're going to need a vaccine passport. And we've even heard some ministers saying if you want to go to the pub, you're going to need to have a vaccine passport before you can go to the pub. So they're saying it's not mandatory, but it sounds pretty mandatory to me. Certainly very coercive.
And that's the sneaky part. I suppose that I'm smiling, you're smiling a little bit, because let's be realistic. You and I discussed this at the start of
a year ago. Yeah.
A year ago, you and I were sitting here, we've been pretty full on about it. And a lot of people told us we're both fucking mad.
Yeah.
And they would never go this far. They would never do this. And if I had $1 for everyone who told me they would never go anywhere near this far, you and I could buy an island and go and sit on the island and go stick all this up your ass.
I really wish we'd put bets down. We should have put some skin in the game, you know. But not that anyone would have taken us up on the bet, you know.
No.
People run a mile when you start putting money on the table.
Mate, 100%. And you look at some of the laws that have come in, and they're starting to threaten that stuff over here. That, you know, Gladys put out something the other week where she sort of basically said businesses are allowed to discriminate as suits regarding COVID. You know, if you don't want people who aren't vaccinated in your business, that's okay. We're okay with that. And I just sort of straight away, my brain went, okay, well, that means gay bakers or, you know, bakers don't have to make gay wedding cakes. Black people may not necessarily be allowed in your shop, nor may white people if you're a black business owner or an Indian or whatever. So apparently it's free for all for discrimination at the moment, which, you know, okay, don't be a hypocrite. Make sure it's all across the board and go nuts. But the mandatory vaccination stuff's pretty full on. And you and I have discussed as well. I'm not actually an anti-vaxxer. I don't see myself as an anti-vaxxer. You know, if polio vaccination as well, they've had some really great results with some vaccinations throughout history, and you know, you'd be remiss to say that's not true. There have been some good jobs done with vaccinations. A lot of, you know, we don't get polio so much, things like that. But
I don't know. Yeah, see, I don't know anymore. You see, when the thing is now, once you start going down this rabbit hole, they open up a door to skepticism about all kinds of things, and yeah, like, you know, all the things that we've been told about vaccinations and stuff, and all the things that we've been told about germs and stuff. You know, a year ago, I would have been the same with you. I'd have been saying, like, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I believe that vaccines have done good and all the rest of it. Now, from the things that I've looked at, I really am very, very skeptical about the things I'm told about polio and the vaccinations, and very, very skeptical about the success that we're told that vaccinations have had. So you go on this journey and you meet new people and you meet different experts, and they start saying different things, and they have their arguments to back them up. So yeah, I mean, I can understand anybody saying I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I was certainly there, less than a year ago. Yeah, I can't say that anymore. I can't say anymore that I believe the official narrative about vaccines anymore.
Yeah. Look, and I don't believe any official narrative about anything. I just got to go, look, from what I've seen, some vaccines seem to have done well in history. This shit, though, let's be fair, it's been rushed through. The late great Donald Trump, should we call him now, who, you know, this, that, and everything else, he was going to be the savior of the world. He's been a bit of a dunce as well, in saying I'd still rather him than Biden. But this is the fastest vaccine ever produced. It's the best in the world.
Isn't it crazy that has been touted as a good thing? You know, we have rushed this vaccine through. We've got this vaccine to market faster than anybody. We're like, really? Okay, and you want me to take this damn thing?
Yeah. I'll line up for it. Give it to me. Give it to me.
Yeah. Things that make you go, give it to me. Give it to me. Mate,
I'm a freedom of choice kind of guy. If you want to go and jump out of a plane without a parachute, you should be entitled to do that. You want to throw yourself off a bridge, you want to and for the people who will take me out of context here, somebody will. If you want to go and shoot heroin and you're a consenting adult, I don't endorse the activity. But if that's what you want to do and you're not hurting anybody else, I don't fucking care what you do. I feel exactly the same way about these vaccines. If you don't want to go and get a vaccine for whatever reason, whether you don't like needles, you don't think it's safe, you think it's all bullshit, whether you think, well, I'm healthy and I really have no need for this shit, I support you 100%. If you want to line up like a little sheep and get the government to give you, you know, whatever chemicals inside you, that's entirely up to you. But the minute you start trying to mandate it for other people, you fuck right off.
The really crazy thing about it is the actual philosophy, the idea that that what I put into my body or don't put into my body makes me liable for your health.
Yeah,
that's the crux of it. That if I do or don't put something in my body, that somehow makes me liable for your health, rather than
while you're eating
rather than what you put in your body being responsible for your health. Like what I put into my body affects me, and what I don't put into my body affects my health. And you are responsible for your health, and what you put in your body determines and is the liability for what happens is about what you do to yourself. It's just clown world. The whole idea of vaccinations, that somehow I must get vaccinated to protect you. Yeah. No, if vaccination,
thyroid should be protected if that vaccination works. Otherwise, it's a complete waste of time. And we've
exactly.
all seen those. Is it a 12-point thing that they've got going around? You would have seen it. I've seen it. You know, it's sort of like an asking the government. So if I wear a mask, am I safe from COVID? No. Am I, you know, if I get vaccinated, will I be saving other people from COVID? Well, not exactly. No.
No.
If there's
will it stop me from spreading it to other people? Also, no. Yeah.
You've seen the
one. Will it stop me from catching it? Will it stop me from spreading it? Are we sure yet that it actually stops, that it reduces the number of people dying? Also, no. No, why not? Because we've only tested it for mild symptoms. We haven't tested it for the severe ones. Oh, and we haven't tested. Oh, and who are we trying to protect again? Oh, yeah, the elderly, the really elderly and the really sick. Have we done any tests on whether it works for the really elderly and the really sick? No, we haven't. That's what we're doing now. That's the trials. Because what people don't realize is that these vaccines are still in the trial phase, and the official trial phase ends in January of 2023. So basically, everybody who is taking the vaccine is taking part in a medical experiment. And what people don't realize is that from the Nuremberg Codes of 1947, they made it explicit that anybody who's taking part in a medical experiment must have full informed consent with no coercion of any sort to be laid upon people. And basically anybody who is like, you know, you heard Anthony Albanese talking about, you know, these vaccines are safe and effective. Okay, well, he's committing a war crime right there and then, because he's basically telling somebody that a medical experiment is safe and effective when we don't know, because it's a trial in the trial phase. When Alan Joyce says, well, you know, we think that you're not going to be able to go on a plane without having this being part of this experiment, he's actually committing a war crime.
Yeah,
people don't realize just the severity of this these actions, and the fact that the Nuremberg trials passed these recommendations and protocols because people were being experimented on without their consent in the past, and they were being coerced and they were being forced, and now we're bringing it all around again, and all of a sudden it's for the greater good. And one of the things the Nuremberg Code says is that regardless of the greater good, you still need full informed consent, and you must not under any circumstances override the rights of the individual to control his or her own body. But here we are.
Well, it's what's the best way to put it? It's fucking ridiculous, mate. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Fucking ridiculous.
Mate, we discussed this a year ago. It was over a year ago, you and I, and we chewed the fat. Nothing has really changed. The government's still trying to bully people into this shit. They're still trying to intimidate people into this shit and coerce them. Coercion is fucking massive. Anybody who questions any of it is harangued by the media and harangued publicly by politicians. The Craig Kelly stuff's a good example of that. I disagree with Craig Kelly on some stuff. I quite like him on other stuff. A bit like the Pete Evans stuff. Some of the stuff I've seen Pete Evans come out with, I go, oh yeah, fuck, we could have a beer and make sense. Some of it, I go, yeah, I don't know about activated almonds, dude, you know, whatever, and your time machine for tanning, whatever the bloody, you know, that contraption is. Look, you know what I mean? And I don't agree with you on everything all the time, and you don't agree. You know what I mean? Like, but these assholes are trying to make everybody fit into this COVID box where if you don't get this medicine, you are not allowed to a pub, you're not allowed to go here, you're not allowed to do that, which is all bullshit because if you're vaccinated, you should have nothing to worry about if the vaccination works. That's the long, short, and the uglies of it. It either works or it doesn't. If it works and you're vaccinated, you shouldn't have to worry about whether somebody else is.
Yeah, and the other straw man that they put up is that, well, you know, but what about the people who can't get vaccinated for whatever health reasons? Well, or hold on, hang on. Who are those who they are not vaccinating for health reasons? Because as far as I've been aware, they are not discriminating against anybody with health things. They are giving it to everybody. And, you know, and what they also haven't said is these people who supposedly can't have the vaccine for health reasons, do they get a vaccine passport?
Well, what do they get?
Do they? Because we're not talked about these people who are supposed to be supposedly saving through herd immunity, which has been redefined. You know, that what happens to them? Do they get vaccine passports? What if you do have a medical reason to not take this vaccine? Do you still get to go in a pub?
Well,
we don't know, but we do know what's happened with the masks. We do know that we had mask exemptions. We do know that there are lots of people with legitimate reasons not to wear a mask. And what happened to them? Were they left alone, or did the police harass the fuck out of them?
Well,
the police harassed the fuck out of them. That's what basically happened.
Stasi have been in full flight, mate. They've been in full flight. You and I both know it, mate.
Got a little story for you. This is back when we had when we locked down the entire state for one person who wasn't sick, who tested on the fake PR test. Okay, so he wasn't sick. We locked down the entire state and we put the mask mandates in. Okay, because of this one guy. I basically refused to wear them. I basically decided to claim an exemption, a lawful exemption. I won't say what that lawful exemption is because it's nobody's fucking business what my lawful exemption is, and I'm innocent until proven guilty as far as I'm concerned. So if my strategy was I'm going to not seek out confrontation on this, but if it comes my way, then basically I will say I have a lawful exemption. And if the police say, what is your lawful exemption? And I will say it is a lawful exemption. Well, you need to wear a mask. Well, I have the presumption of innocence since the Magna Carta. So if you have evidence that I am unlawfully not wearing a mask, and that I don't have any of these exemptions that apply, that are, there's a myriad of exemptions that you can claim. If I don't have any of these exemptions, then you may arrest me. But if you don't have evidence of these things, that I don't have an exemption, if you don't have any evidence, any physical evidence to prove that I am guilty, then basically go fuck yourself. I'm exempt, and until you can prove otherwise, I'm innocent until proven guilty. So that's the attitude I went out with, and also whether or not I have a legitimate exemption or not, I will say to you, hand on heart, yes, I did, but that was the strategy I was going with regardless. So I was quite confident that if I was arrested, that I would be able to defend myself in court, even if they did finally force me to say what my exemption was. But anyway, moving on. So I'm in Kmart walking around without a mask on. I'm literally the only person in the entire shopping center. The shopping center is packed full of people, and I'm the only one not wearing a mask. Little old lady asks me to help her put some shelving into her trolley. So help her put the shelving into the trolley, and she says to me, "Oh, excuse me, can I just ask you a question? Why are you not wearing a mask?" And I says, "Because I have a lawful reason not to." She goes, "Oh, because I have emphysema and asthma, and I'm really struggling to breathe right now, but I'm scared to take the mask off."
Yeah, that's the world.
Yeah, I'm scared to take the mask off. So I told her that she was legally allowed to take the mask off if she was struggling to breathe. And so she took the breath up and said, "Oh, thank you. Thank you so much." And this is why it's so important that people stand up for their rights, because that little old lady literally has a breathing issue, a serious life-threatening breathing issue. And she was terrified because every single sheep around her was wearing a mask, and she was terrified of being judged, being shouted at, having the security coming over, having the police being called upon her. And she has a definite life-threatening reason not to wear a mask, because she couldn't breathe in the damn thing.
Oh, fucking idiot. Sorry, Stephen. I've got a bloody naughty dog here, and for the audience, who is adamant that he wants to hang out with me tonight. He's been so friggin' naughty.
Yeah.
All day. I thought it would be my 8-year-old being naughty, but he's gone to bed like a good child. The dog, on the other hand, thinks it's time to have a party. But
never work with animals and children, mate. You should know that by now. Should have learned that before known that before you started streaming, mate.
Yeah, well, look, fuck, it is what it is, mate. And you know how I roll. I just take it as it comes, mate. So look, all this, we're usually pretty within a couple of degrees of each other and agreeing. Politically, who's been having a red hot crack, at defending our rights as far as all this COVID stuff goes? Anyone stand out to you? And what candidates have you got for the no mandated vaccination party? I don't know much about you guys other than what you stand for.
It's basically Cam. Oh, I can't remember his second name. Terrible with names. Sorry, it just escaped me. The guy who set it up was a former member of the Liberal Party. I think he was the head of the Young Liberals. It's grown. Literally was set up just before Christmas. Yep. It's now has more members than any other party in Western Australia. So it's gone over a few months to basically have more signed up members than any other party. And most of the people who are candidates, you'd have never heard of them before, because they're just basically people, ordinary people who've decided that they need candidates, and therefore I'm going to stand as one. And it's fairly simple, because it's literally a one-issue party. It's got 4 policies: repeal the legislation, make it illegal for employers to demand you get vaccinated as a condition of coming to work, make it illegal for schools to demand that your kids are vaccinated before they can go to school, and reintroduce conscientious objection in terms of medication, things that were basically taken out of the law in 2016. So that's all it is. And pretty much they come from Labour, Liberals, Greens. They're from across the board in terms of previous political affiliations, which is great. How successful they'll be, probably not that successful, because that's just the way politics works at the moment. Every major party, Greens, Labour, Liberals, have preferenced this party last, which just shows you where their ethics are at. That we've been branded by the media as the anti-vax party, and most of them. I mean, I am now, because I know a little bit more. But the vast majority of people just want my body, my choice, basically, and they want to own their own body.
Spheres of life, yeah. Some spheres of life, it's my body, it's my choice. Other spheres, not apparently.
Yeah, well, I made a speech at the last protest about my body, my choice, and I talked about my body, my choice for abortion. I talked about my body, my choice for euthanasia. And then I made the point that why is it that governments and politicians only support my body, my choice when it comes to matters of death, but never in matters of life? You can kill an unborn baby up to 39 weeks now. Yeah. You can right up to the moment that the woman is giving birth, you can still have an abortion now for any reason, not to be questioned. You can in parts of the world now, the assisted dying for the terminally ill is now morphed into, you can get somebody to come along and just inject you if you're feeling a bit down on the day. So the politicians are quite happy to endorse any my body, my choice if it involves getting rid of people who are unproductive in society, or who might cause a problem. Who might cause an issue to the welfare system, and who might override the pension system. You can get rid of those people, my body, my choice. But when it comes to deciding on whether or not you're going to live by putting things in your body or not putting things in your body. That's a taboo. Now we're currently being. I can't remember who said it, but there was some news report that we're supposed to be now considered terrorists, and we're supposed to be under terrorism watch for stopping the vaccine rollout or for hindering it in any way. We're now to be considered terrorists. That's the next level of rhetoric that's now going out against people who simply want the inalienable right that we've had since the Magna Carta in law and since time immemorial as human beings, that I own my body, not the government, and that we need to, that it's a really bad thing now that's been changed in WA, that the government now owns our bodies, hook, line, and sinker. That we want to repeal that. We're now terrorists for that. That's how bad it's got.
Yeah, well, and my philosophy always comes back to fuck the government. I really don't, Yeah, mate. Yeah, everybody knows where I stand on the government. I've got no time for them. I don't think they have, and it's a they. It is a they. It's a collective. They've got no business ruling over other people, and it doesn't matter whether it's totalitarian Mark or Gladys, who she tends to just come in a couple of weeks later behind the other totalitarians, since she's the only Liberal Party. Big wig around.
What do they say? Democracy. It's as Plato said. There's different kinds of tyranny, and democracy is just tyranny by the mob.
That's all it is, mate. My gang's bigger than your gang, and we'll dictate over you how we see fit. That's all I see most of this stuff as. I won't be getting the jab anytime soon. That's for sure. And they can shove their travel and they can shove their rules far up their ass. I refuse to wear a mask on all things. Not because I have any great issue with wearing a mask. I have an issue with them being mandated. Fuck off. Stop telling me what to do. If you're wearing your mask, you should be safe enough. Thank you. I'll run the risk.
And if you don't feel safe enough, follow Dr. Fauci's advice and wear two.
That's it. Wear two.
If that still doesn't work, I've heard plastic bags are fantastic. You tie them around your head. No air can get in or out, and you will not die of COVID. Guaranteed.
Mate, look, I'm about as scared of catching COVID, to be perfectly honest with you, as I'm worried a shark's going to come through this window and bite me in a minute. It's just, that's how concerned I am.
Have you not seen Sharknado 4?
Well, no.
Come on. You've got to take these threats seriously, mate.
Oh, mate, it
could happen. There should be a law. Don't tell the government about Sharknado 4, or I promise you there'll be laws. There'll be bars mandated on your windows to stop those sharks coming through your window.
Yeah, we've got to keep you safe. Fuck off. Just fuck off. I don't want to be safe. I just want to live without you pricks annoying me. I try to have the least amount of non-voluntary interactions with people possible. Stephen, you want to have a chat and we'll do a talk? Yeah, great, cool. I don't want to watch your talk. Don't. Thank you. It's very fucking simple. I don't know why people find all this stuff so hard. You know what I mean? Just does my head in, mate. It does my head in. But look, as always, I love catching up with you. I really feel like we get along on most topics, and that's great. Is there any standout politicians? Craig Kelly's sort of shown some semblance of nuts, but he hasn't really pushed away. The LDP guys have been pretty PC on it. I mean, they have sort of opposed quite a lot of the bills that have been put up, but they haven't really come out and picked a fight, so to speak.
The main thing about Craig Kelly that I will finally take my hat off to him for, because I've been banging on him on his Facebook page whenever I wasn't banned from Facebook, that basically he needed to leave the Liberal Party. Because the Liberal Party is nothing more than Manchurian candidates these days and sellouts, and he doesn't belong in there anymore. And he should stop defending his useless prime minister on all of the COVID stuff. He would criticize the Labour Party, but he would leave Scott Morrison alone. So I'm glad he has pulled the plug on the Liberal Party. I hope to God that I will see him criticize Scott Morrison just as much as I see him criticizing Anthony Albanese from now on. If he does that, then he has my respect. If he doesn't, then you know, he's only half there.
Have you run into Andrea Takashi over that way? She's over your way. She's running as an independent for Baldivis.
No, that'd be too far south of me, so I haven't run into her.
Okay. She's top quality bird. She's really cool.
So that would be Baldivis is where Aaron Stonehouse lives. So I don't know if Aaron's still running again or not.
Well, Aaron's not running in that electorate. She released her how to votes today. She's got the LDP candidate number 3. And
of course, sorry, Aaron's in the Aaron's going for the upper. Aaron's in the upper house.
Aaron's Senate level, but yeah, no. And I spoke to her for last week's episode on here. I thought she was a great addition. Her and Ross Cameron. So I had two people who have both been booted from the Liberal Party, which I kind of, it's good on you guys. Well done, Bit of an outsiders reunion, so to speak, because both of them have been kicked out. She was the one who got into strife for questioning whether 5G had anything to do with any of this stuff. So, of course, after she'd been a member of the Liberal Party for 12 years, then they decided to work out that a year ago, before endorsing her as a candidate, that, oh, hang on, we've just gone back through your history after 12 years of you working with us, and we've decided we think you're a bit kooky or a bit weird.
A bit kooky because you've questioned whether the technology is safe, which we don't know yet. I mean, we literally don't know whether it's safe or not. We do know that if you're close proximity to that kind of level of radiation is dangerous. We've had a lot of problems with smart meters and stuff in people's homes where it was just too concentrated. The main concern with the 5G towers is the fact that the very nature of the way they work is that they have a short range, and the concentration of radiation gets exponentially higher the closer you get to it. So that there is that concern about where it's put. But there's been no safety studies on it, so you get a lot of. I've heard some of the really far out, total. They're trying to kill us, guys. Speak, and I've heard the official narrative, and the truth is we just don't know because they haven't actually tested it properly. And it's what's really annoying about the 5G thing is it's a really easy thing to test. You can literally just pay a farmer to have a field with cows with a 5G tower in it and a field of cows without a 5G tower in it. Run a study, see what happens over the space of a few months. Does it affect the cows? Does it not affect the cows? Does the incidence of it's one of those things that's really, really easy to put to bed if they want to, and so. It's not like it's one of these tests that will cost billions of dollars to run. It's something you can literally find out using pretty basic methods. So yeah,
you know full well that if it's $100 test to run, the government will find a way to make it $1,000 test to run, right?
Well, even if it was $100,000 test to run, it's better than running the test on real human beings in real time.
100%, mate, 100%. And my faith in government's pretty well zero. I don't trust our lot. I don't trust the American lot. Don't trust the Chinese lot. Funnily enough, what a shock!
Oh, what a shock! Yeah,
what a shock.
Because I don't know why. They've got a great history of human rights, don't they?
No, look, all of them. If they're given the opportunity, never let a good crisis go to waste. These guys will take advantage 100 times out of 100. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Liberal Party, a Labor Party, a Greens Party, or some fucking maniac in China or America. All you want to do is watch all the nonsense that goes on. And anybody who's putting faith in other people to save them is missing the whole point. You got to save yourself. You got to have some self-responsibility and tackle things as you best believe suits you and your family, not the thing that best suits whichever talking heads on TV at the time.
Which will bring back back to that point about the Kmart incident with that old lady. And to anybody who's watching, we're literally not going to vote our way out of this because the mainstream media has the control. So the only really way out of it is non-compliance. And the only thing about non-compliance is you do take a risk, and you have to take a risk to not comply. But think about that situation of that old lady. if I had complied that day. If I, like everyone else, had complied that day, what would have happened to that lady who was struggling to breathe behind her mask? Would she have been okay? Maybe.
How far did she have to push herself?
Yeah. And so it's not, for people who think that looking after yourself and is a selfish act. No, doing the right thing is an act that has ramifications far beyond things that you could ever even imagine. And non-compliance to tyranny is the most important thing, and it is the only thing in the end that that stops tyranny. You can't vote your way out of tyranny.
No,
you can't vote your way out. Once the tyrants have got the power, you can't vote your way out. And I don't particularly want to shoot my way out either, because they tend to have more guns. But non-compliance, held to, you know, sincerely, firmly, and with courage, that is the way forward, certainly for the time being. Is that when you know something is wrong, you have to stand up for what is right. And if that means a personal hit in your own life, if that means that you do get arrested, if that means you do lose your job, if that means life is tough for you for a while, really the question is, well, why are you on this planet? What is your life? What is your life about? What are you going to say at the end of your life? Are you going to say that you lived comfortably and you went on holiday twice a year? Or are you going to say you stood up when evil was trying to take over? Are you going to say at the end of your life, I had courage, I stood up for what was right? And that's really the kind of choice you got to make about your life, is what kind of person do you want to be? What do you want your life experience to be when you die? What do you want your regrets to be? What, you know, what is it? What are you here for? Why are you here? Why are you on this planet? Why are you on this earth? Are you here just to live, eat, fart, die? Or are you here for something greater? Are you here to stand up for what you know in your soul to be right? And wouldn't that be a great life if you had the courage to actually do it,
mate? And so if you do, and you're one of the men I do know that stands for what he believes in, that's why I love having you on here when we do these things, and supporting you in other ways. You know, like I bought your book and whatever, and I just love the fact that you stand for what you believe in, and that's 80% of it. We don't have to agree on everything, but the fact you stand for what you believe in holds more value to me than all the yes men in the world, mate. So I appreciate.
You're making me blush.
I know, mate. I'm a warm and fuzzy kind of guy, but you know,
you love me. You love me, don't you? You love me.
Oh, look at this! It's a love fest. I mean, appreciate people like yourself, and you know, and there's a few others. We've got Father Chris Yates, and you know, who comes on the show regularly, and he's very passionate about his corner of the world, and you know, I just think it's something that if we support each other in those areas, and we know we're not alone in those areas too, because it can be pretty lonely when you put your neck out. I know I'm always putting my head above the parapet and ready to get shot off, and it can be you sit there and you think, shit, okay, or because your haters are very loud, your enemies are loud and brash, and there's more of them.
Yeah, you're going to be outnumbered, and you will feel alone. I mean, it's not just one shopping centre. I walked through two shopping centres in Perth over the mask mandate thing. And literally, I was the only one, like thousands of people, I was the only one walking around without a mask on. And yeah, look, I understand the fear that people will experience when, you know, for standing up, for doing something like that. But trust me, everyone, if you do it, I promise you that there is no better feeling in the world to know that despite all of your fear, despite all of the risk, that you did it anyway. I was chased through Mirrabooka shopping centre by a security guard for not wearing my mask. It was the funniest thing, you know, and it's he literally followed me like all the way from one end to the other into the car and started writing down my number plate thing, and it's just yada yada yada. But it's got to be done. It's got to. you know, like if the next when the next lockdown comes, and the next lockdown will come, this is the point. It's not going away. It will keep happening until people stop complying. Because as long as you comply, you keep enabling the government to do more, which is why we've gone from, you know, the first tentative steps a year ago with flatten the curve to now we must not have anybody testing positive at all, not even one. Not even if the PCR test has been shown to be completely and utterly useless at diagnosing anything. Not even if the person who's tested positive hasn't even got the case of the sniffles, hasn't even needed a single cup of chicken soup. But we're going to lock down everybody. They do it because we've kept complying. So next time the lockdown comes, you know, if I see one other person in the shopping center other than myself not wearing a mask, that will be a victory. And if the time after that, I see 4 people, and the time after that I see 8 people. You know, I've got the rest of my life to keep doing this, and until these numbers grow to hundreds and then thousands of people, lockdowns will keep happening. And that's what everyone needs to realize. Lockdowns are not going away with a vaccine. Lockdowns and mask mandates are not going away with a vaccine. None of this is going away until we say no, until we say stop. It's going to keep coming back again and again and again until people stop complying with it.
Mate, and on that note, let's wind it up right there because you're 100% on the money. Thank you so much, Stephen, for the work you do. Good luck in the upcoming elections for the no mandatory vaccination party. I'm obviously a card-carrying Liberal Democrat, but, you know, I always like to see the smaller parties and the independents and anybody who actually shows some courage to get up and compete and get them votes. Anything away from those big monster fucking mongrels. Mate, have a great night. Thank you so much.
No worries, mate. Take care.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that. We now have a very special guest from the United States. So this will be super interesting. Dean heads this interview. Let's check it out.
Hey gang, episode 2, series 3, Resolute TV. We're back again. We've got another unique guest. We've had some. I keep getting blown away by the quality and the interesting nature of the guests we managed to acquire for this little program, this humble little program over here in Australia. I'd like to introduce everyone to Darryl Cotton. Darryl Cotton's the head of 151 Farms. He's a cannabis advocate. Let's not beat about the bush. He's a cannabis man, and his farms are driven as an aquaponic structure in and around community growing. So there's a real big community going on. His website's 151farms.org. I can recommend everybody checks it out. I've been playing with it for the last 2 weeks. Everybody knows about my little Resolute project here that we're playing with. And I'm going to learn a bucket ton from this gentleman sitting here with me today. And I'm just disappointed we've only got a certain amount of time to do it. Welcome aboard, Darryl. Thanks for coming on Resolute TV.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, and I appreciate you taking the time to bring this to the world's attention. It's so important, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Mate, look, it's a very small corner of the world that I inhabit down here in Australia, but I do know some. I know some. We've got very similar cultures in some ways and very different cultures in other ways, which is why I get along with the American guys that I know fairly well, and I'm sure you and I will be no different. Mate, how did you get started in an enterprise whereby you're matching the growth of fish, the growth of cannabis, the growth of food, all in one great big setup, and including the community in that setup? Because that's the other.
I think any of these things, you come in as a reluctant activist. You really don't anticipate getting full blown into the scenario that creates the laws and regulations we live under until you find yourself one day caught in the middle of it. So, I'm 60 years old. When I was your age and younger, I just had to make a living. And I never realized that our government was isolating us to the point that we didn't see the big picture. And one of the things that unites us all, and it's one of our foundational elements to being a 151 farmer, is you have to eat. So if you eat, you're in. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, what your skin color is, if you're gay, straight, what religion, how much money you have. If you eat, you're in. So when we started these farms from an urban perspective, it was to be able to do something that didn't require soil, would be extremely conservative for the amount of water it used. And by doing so, it would allow anybody, based on their skill sets and desire, to get into this, because not all food comes from a drive-through. It's not always in packages. So we teach people how to grow with aquaculture. And aquaculture, again, it's 151farmers.org. You can see us there. Is a social path to having control of your life, your own destiny. The reason for that is that everybody that comes to us, there might be advanced degree people to entry level, can have something to do on our farms to create an environment where they're contributing to society. So we house homeless people. If they don't have real problems, mentally, that is, we can finally or eventually find something for them to do that's a good fit on the site. It might be art, it might be cooking, it might be growing. And the medical needs that we have, I am a medical patient. I take cannabis for nocturnal seizures. I find that the quality of the plants that we grow this way, because we can't put pesticides or fungicides or nutrients into a system that would kill our fish. So the fish become a co-component of this entire atmosphere here, where the fish can be sold to market, or our koi. They're huge 30-inch fish. They're all ornamental. And that instills a sense of real awe. It's their waste that creates the flip dynamic, which is the nutrients for the plants. And we've been doing that here for about 10 years in San Diego. We have a working farm.
It sounds amazing. How big's the farm? Like, how big's the property?
It's not that big, actually. It's I got two 6,000 square foot plots, and I do network all of the tanks. I take standard IBC totes. These are your shipping container totes. They're 275 gallons that I cut the tops off and I fill them with rock. So the difference between my system and most aquaculture systems who use floating rafts, things of that nature, is I do deep root plants. So I can grow avocados and hops and my Valencia orange and figs. These are deep root plants. And the way I do that is through what's called dual root zone. The top zone, and this is good for flowering cannabis, you can put any of the hydroponic nutrients in that zone, but you can't overwater it, because if the water drops down into the first zone, the lower zone, that's the zone for the fish. And that's a constant flow of water running between my fish tank and the plant tanks or tubs. And by doing that, you have this, I call it bringing the river to your roots. You're just like in nature where plants get really well developed next to riverbeds. We have the same situation, because we're really bringing a constant flow of water through these lava rocks, these highly porous rocks. And those rocks contain beneficial bacteria that eat nitrites and convert it to nitrates. So the plants need the fish need the plants. My system's unique in that it's a constant flow, and it relies on captured rainwater and solar. We're off the grid.
Okay, that was on my question list. Is from what I know of aquaponics and some of the people I've spoken to, it costs a lot to run these pumps. It costs a lot. It's very expensive in water. I don't know what you guys.
It can be. You're absolutely right, but in a world where we have diminishing resources, especially with water being the new oil, if we can capture that rainwater and keep it in a system where the evaporative losses are kept to a minimum, you can run year-round in the desert with these systems. You really have environmental considerations after that in terms of temperature and humidity based on whatever plants you choose. But the idea is, like with the homeless people, I'm a big advocate of trying to help the homeless and give them a sense of purpose, something to do. So you can move these small farms, more farms, not less, and get people out there on 3 or 6 month contracts where they'll have a place to stay, where they'll make some money, where they can learn a skill. And then when they leave, you can always take them back to the inner city, but maybe you take them to the other farm where the other farm's growing different crops. And at the end of the day, our Beverly Hills and our La Jolla restaurants can eat from food grown out of South Central. Okay, that's the idea. Try to find ways to imagine a way to turn the future around, and that's what we're trying to do at 151.
Which is, and the social aspect of helping the homeless is it's an amazing thought. Look, you and I are probably not overly in love with the government, I suspect, but in Australia there's a deep-seated feeling of the general population that it's the government's job to solve homelessness, and I've sort of always had the opposite feeling that it's people's job to solve homelessness.
And they have to get out of our way. I mean, that's the problem. They can make this so burdensome. And at this point, it's so overwhelming that, where do you really start? Some of these decisions are too little too late.
Yeah. I mean, look, the first thing when you said about the homeless people going and working on the farm for board and accommodation, I actually had a bit of a debate with a fellow the other day, and he's socialist-y leaning. You know, oh, that's just slave labour. How can you have people? So we at the moment, we've got a food glut in Australia. We've got too much food, not enough people to pick it. So with all this coronavirus, whether you're a believer or a nonsense, you know, whether you think it's nonsense, the way they've set it up, we used to have an awful large portion of the population would come over from backpackers from all over Europe. They'd backpack around Australia. They'd go picking fruit. The wages weren't high, but they did accommodation and food and all that sort of stuff. They'd trek around the country picking fruit, make their money, have a good time in Australia, and a sort of a working holiday. So of course, did
that disappear? Yeah, that's the problem. Well, it disappeared. Yeah.
Going, no, you can't do that. That's slave labour. It's not fair. They need to work a living wage. Well, they don't need a living wage if their house is paid for and if their food's paid for. You claim how it all works. So I imagine if you do that over there, some bureaucrat somewhere is going to poke his head up from behind a bush somewhere and go, "Excuse me, these homeless people, you need to be paying $40 an hour." Or, I mean, have you guys got that minimum wage in that Sleepy Joe was talking about yet, or not yet?
Oh, no, but it's certainly an issue, as well as the unionization of like our cannabis licenses now require that if you have 20 or more employees, you have to have a labor peace agreement, which is basically an agreement that you won't stop your employees from unionizing, and you'll need that agreement in place. So it's a entree, the first time I've seen it, where the law mandates that you be union. All right. And I just don't think our government was put in place to tell us how we conduct our business. There should be safety nets, our minimum standards and so on, but the market really should dictate it. And I'm a firm believer in that. And when you create the lowest pay level, which is too high to support people's lives anyway, and it still is too expensive to employ them, then you have nothing. You failed completely.
You're creating barriers to entry that just have no business being there. If you've got somebody who's been homeless on the street of, I don't know, San Diego, for example, and Darryl Cotton comes along in his 151 van and he says, "Mate, look, I can't pay you a living wage, but I'll tell you what, we got plenty of food, we got plenty of shelter. I'm happy to share it with you.
We'll take you off the streets. Yeah,
we'll take you off the streets. We'd like you to contribute to our farm work. Are you into that?" Oh, well, that sounds fantastic for the homeless guy, but then some lunatic comes along and goes, "Well, that's not acceptable. You can't do this." That's the sort of absolute madness in clan world.
With that. And going forward, that's the biggest challenge to any of these farms. It's managing the people, because you have different personalities, you have different interests and so on. But if you start your everyday picking up dog poop in my yard like I do, the day can only get better. And that's why I try to ground myself to that. There's got to be something consistent and constant. And with me, it's my dogs, it's rescuing, it's doing things like that, and helping other people see what it is that we want to achieve here. And for the most part, we're successful at that.
Yeah, and look, and again, your website shows off some really amazing concepts and some happy-looking people who seem to be enjoying the experience. Which I think is fantastic.
So many said it couldn't be done, like with the hops, for example. But it's because you fail certain ways of doing things, you learn from that and adjust. And what I have right now is people in the aquaculture industry, they're astonished by what we're doing. We do our microgreens, we do our deep roots, we do leafy greens, we do cannabis and hemp. So this is remarkable. You can really see a lot more of this on our Facebook page. If you go to 151 Farms, I think it's 151 Farms Facebook page, you'll see galleries that we've shown from start to finish, indoor, outdoor, even some greenhouse.
Yeah. No, look, it looks brilliant. Can I ask what varieties of fish you host in your system, other than the koi? Is there which ones are you selling to market?
It's freshwater, so tilapia is by far the largest percentage of fish we have. We also have there's bluegill, there's bass. So you can mix it up. Yeah. I don't really eat my fish. I keep them in the system, but in a truly commercial system, you would be selling those fish and eating them too. My fish are pretty spoiled here.
Yeah, for sure. And what about the 151? How do you describe 151?
There's some meaning to that. Thank you for asking. 151. It's not just a room anymore. I call it 1 pound of fish to 5 gallons of food to 1 square foot of media. That's one community. And then the reality in terms of ratio is you need 1 pound of fish to 5 gallons of water to 1 square foot of media. So there's 2 ways you can look at 151. And that's not a hard and fast ratio, but one of the things, like if you go to some of these commercial markets where the fish are just packed in, they can't even swim or turn. I find that kind of an evil way to raise fish. So even if we're raising fish for sale, we want to keep the ratio such that they have a high quality of life until they're ready to harvest.
Yeah, for sure. And we were discussing earlier. So this system, you can transport it all around the United States. You can't send one over to Australia, but you can send them all around. It's
palletized. So once we have a system inoculated that the bacteria that lives in the rock is eating the nitrites, that's the fish waste, it's urine, it converts from ammonia to nitrites. In a normal or any aquaponic type of system, that would be fatal to the fish. Those nitrate levels get too high. So anytime that we're doing aquarium work, we have to battle that. But with aquaculture, you have the plants converting that with the beneficial bacteria. As it eats it, it shits it out, and that gets to the plants, which is, in my case, about 90% of their nutrients. Now, the flowering plants need some trace minerals, and that's what the top container allows us to do, is add top water. Very rarely do we have to do that, and we don't get a lot of rain in San Diego. So what rain we want or have hit us, we capture it, and we'll save it to storage tanks for year-round constant flow of the water. That water doesn't ever just leave. It evaporates, or the plant will uptake it, but our evaporative levels are extremely low, less than 3%.
Okay, and how do you ensure that they stay that low?
Because what we do is we run the water line about an inch below the top of the rock. So you have a 1-inch barrier that the sun never hits that water. It's not wanting to leave. And then we oxygenate the water. So as the water comes into the tub, it does so on a system I designed right at the bottom. There's oxygen there. So the water rises through the tank, carrying oxygenated water to the roots. And it's a constant flow, which also increases how happy the fish are, because this constant turnover of water, it takes what is about a 2,000-gallon tank and adds 30,000 or more gallons, because that pump only has to serve the farthest tank. After that tank's filled, it goes and fills the next one and the next one and the next one until finally it ends back at the fish. And my friend, it's a beautiful sight to see.
Yeah. Look, the videos, they just look really cool. They are.
There's no limit except for our imaginations of what we can do with this.
Yeah, no, look, it's a beautiful project. So, okay, you're growing cannabis. There's the red hot topic here. That's the controversial topic. You grow the cannabis. Obviously, it's legal where you are, or you have the licensing to do so, which is obviously very important for anyone watching this. If you're going to go and try and copy or mimic the 151 farms, be very aware of what your laws regarding growing cannabis are in your state, territory, town, whatever the case may be. All over the world, it's pretty different. Be very careful of that. But obviously, you've got the necessary. You're not running some sort of an illegal marijuana business.
No. And for me, it's always been about medical. So if it can supplant pharmaceutical drugs and maintain my normal high quality of life without seizures or whatever the disease, if it's a neurodegenerative disease, you should take a hard look at cannabis and what various strains can do. With any medicine, it will repair, release, or prevents. And if you've got to go to a wide variety of prescription medicines to get that done, and opiates especially, that leads to addiction, and that leads to some of the problems we're seeing around the world with opiate addiction. Cannabis is non-addictive. It's not fatal. You can't overdose on it. And to be able to grow your own puts you in charge. So you're going to run afoul of the pharmaceutical industries if you're making a threat at that. We see that in Colorado right now, where the prescriptions are dropping. I just got off a call with some lawyers out there. And it's the same thing. They consider it a success until such time that big ag, big pharma says, no, enough. Your little experiment in medical is fine, but we're going to go recreational. That way we can profit from it. And by doing that, we're going to limit your resources as a medical cannabis patient and what you can grow on your own. And the problem with that was in recreational, as these markets evolve, everybody wants the high effect. Well, there's parts of the cannabinoid profile in cannabis that doesn't get you high. It might make you drowsy. It might make you, you may not have any reaction, CBD, for example. But what you are getting is our endocannabinoid system. It's unique to every one of us. You're getting a broad spectrum of that plant to satisfy our cannabinoid receptors and take care of conditions that don't lead to what we call homeostasis, a happy, fully filled life. And if we have cannabis doing that, then we don't have to see our doctor as often. And for me, that's cut down on prescription drugs by about 90%.
Yeah, right. Look, I'm pretty lucky. People ask me all the time. I'm in such excellent health. I went to a doctor recently for a legal matter, and the doctor just said to me, he said, "I can't treat you because you don't have any medical history. It's been over 11 years since I actually went and saw a doctor for anything. Like, who's your regular doctor? I don't have one, mate. I don't go to doctors."
Well, it's exercise, it's good health. You don't have a lot of stress, but you're an active guy, and that clearly shows. And you're trying to make a difference in this world. Your podcast is evidence of that. So all I would say is, don't believe everything you've been told about anything. Think critically. And when it comes to cannabis, a lot of this research has been suppressed for many, many years. But what you'll see if you look at the history, and by the way, this is on our 151's Canagreed page. So if you go to 151 Farmers and go to Canagreed, you'll see lists to links, that is, to some of the reports that were issued back in the 70s that proved that it was non-addictive. The medical benefits were there, and more research would have to be done. Well, what did Richard Nixon do when he got that report? It was called the Schaefer Report. He shelved it. He took it off because that was his way of protecting big pharma. And at some point, 20 years later, that research comes out, those reports, those recommendations, and it proves without a doubt we were lied to in the 70s about the medical benefits of cannabis. So look at it from that perspective first.
Come on, Mr. Colton. The government would never lie to any of us.
Yeah, right.
Do you have particular buyers, or do you run a dispensary? I know the US is sort of big on dispensaries. We don't really have dispensaries here as such, not in the same way you guys do anyway. What do you do with the cannabis? What do you do with the product?
Well, I grow enough for me and people that live here and closely related associates who have medical conditions. I just can't let them go. I mean, we're talking Crohn's and lupus and ALS. Their quality of life is such where they've come in here in the past and said, "I'm ready to jump off a bridge." So my essential oils, if you can extract, because in some cases it just takes so much cannabis to be able to satisfy this condition. They're smoking all day long. However, if you can do an oil that they just have to lightly hit on, and they can introduce it into their body that way, and it gives them a higher quality of life, it's not always going to fix things. I mean, sometimes the cancer is so advanced, it's not going to be of any help, but it can help with quality of life. And to me, that's everything.
Yeah, no, I sort of started. I've never been a smoker. I still am not, to be honest with you. So there's some people who go, "How can you be a cannabis advocate?" Because over here with our political party, I'm sort of legalizing and making it available to people, consenting adults. I never needed to be a marijuana user to feel that way. But when my father, he broke his neck, he was a quadriplegic, and he was in a world of hurt, and that was one of the remedies that we introduced to him, certainly in the latest stages.
There's a lot of different varieties. There's your sativas, which will be more uplifting, and then your indicas that are going to be more psychoactive and more sedative. So where we want to see each individual's patient relation with that plant and that strain is it's so important to maintain that strain for that patient. So it's not a one-size-fits-all like the pharmaceuticals that have you believe.
Well, no, pharmaceuticals and governments would believe everything is always cut and cut. You're a cookie cutter. People should be the same. It's easier to manage that way, I suppose.
I agree.
What's the next lot of plans for you? I understand you're in the middle of a bit of a court case, or in the middle of, or how's that all progressing? What's the story there? I've seen you protesting a lot outside.
Thank you for asking. What that really is, it's my way of taking what was a sham lawsuit 4 years ago, and I represent myself in California or the United States. It's called pro se litigation. So I'm a pro se self-represented plaintiff suing in federal court parties that would basically manipulate and monopolize the cannabis regulatory system. And they tried to steal my property. They didn't have a contract with me. And the judges will protect judges. So even though 4 years ago this has been thrown out as a sham lawsuit, it was maintained to the point that now I'm in federal court and judges will protect judges at the lower courts. And I've got 2 judges now listed as defendants in my federal case. And this case is being heard by Judge Robinson. He's had it for now going on 6 months, and he has not issued one order. So you just got to keep sticking with these things and fighting them. As long as the law is on your side, eventually they have to address it. And that's what I see happening here. It's cannabis related too, by the way.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research and reading on it, and it just looked like an interesting case. And obviously, the way you've tackled it, it seems to be It's not quite a peaceful protest, but
No,
it's
I
far
would
more
call it determined.
stuff we've seen over months.
I call it determined, but I do show up at the court and I protest there just to let them know that all this doesn't happen in a vacuum. The world is watching.
Oh look, well, I got wind of it. Obviously, Nicholas Wildstar actually mentioned you last time he and I spoke. He's having his own problem at the moment, and look, Australia's we're not far behind you guys in all the sort of carry on and nonsense that goes on. That's for sure. We have our own sets of problems. So you know, I obviously feel for you guys, and I generally these days, when I was this tall, I used to sort of probably say, oh, well, the police arrested that person. Yeah, they must be a bad person. And as you get a bit older, you start to realise that, hang on a minute, there's an awful lot of stuff going on here that's not quite as it seems or as it should be. I don't know if you saw that Wildstar's in trouble he filmed his own trial.
Yeah.
And then aired it, but apparently it was okay for the court to do exactly the same thing, not okay to do it. And you sort of go, well,
is that ongoing? Or
what
happened with that?
Seems like it's still ongoing. He's been locked up, facing 6 years for it, which is fucking madness. You don't get
it is madness. Yeah. No, you can only do these things when they define the rules and regulations. But there's broader issues at stake here. In the United States, it's the First Amendment. There's our Fourth Amendment, security from our persons, places, and effects. I do have some federal challenges that force the federal government to look at this, even though it's cannabis related, as civil rights. I mean, we're going all the way back to Martin Luther King, that, you're not secure and the civil rights are being broken. The federal courts have a duty to hear these cases. So that's what this has turned into. Again, I was a reluctant activist to get into all this. I was looking at retirement and just going on and growing my weed, playing golf, doing what I do. But that's not been the lot here. I've been handed a different set of cards. It's
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I didn't. Again, it's reflective. Leave me alone. I just want to do my own thing. I don't want to have any non-voluntary interaction with anybody. If you're over there and I'm over here, there's no reason we need to talk. Oh, but I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Possibly the scariest sentence on the planet ever, coined by anybody.
Yeah.
Look, we just need to be left alone. Consenting adults should be able to do whatever they want.
Well, and there's other elements to look at too, and like what's going on right in front of us, where this situation in Washington, D.C., as they're building fences and arming our Capitol buildings and everything. Is that an overreaction to whatever the so-called threat was on the 6th? Absolutely. People have a right for peaceful demonstration. They do it all the time. When they go violent, there's repercussions for that. But you don't wall off the people's buildings and make it inaccessible, which is why I would remind you that we used to have something called posse comitatus. I was talking to Nicholas Wildstar about this. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, I've heard the word, but I'm certainly not lawyer.
Well, what it means is that we have communities that will integrate their own protection, and we don't need the government to come in and protect these smaller communities, okay? We're going to protect them on our own, and we're going to answer to the lowest higher authority, in that most cases would be the sheriff. And he would be our ambassador to coordinate with those other authorities what we're doing. We're no harm to others. We're no harm to within. What are we doing in our personal neighborhoods, these posse comitatus, is to not only protect ourselves, but to engage in our community spirit and develop that. Right now, we're isolated. We don't have that. Everybody's separated with masks. Whether there's a COVID virus that lifts or raises itself to this response level is debatable. But nonetheless, they've been successful in separating us as a people, and we need to get that back. 151 Farms is one way of doing that. If you eat, you're in. You get posse comitatus back, my friend.
It's a beautiful concept, mate. I love the idea. I love the thought process behind it. I love the work that's gone into it, and it's thinking outside the box. It ticks, and for me, it ticks just about everything that where society should be getting to. Not necessarily with the big aquaponic setups and the whatever, but just the community doing the things that it wants to do to sustain itself without the off-grid things. Brilliant, like I don't want an electricity bill. Oh, but if if you get solar panels, you'll listen to this problem. Yeah, but I'd rather have that problem than a problem where I get a bill from an entity I choose not to interact with.
Right.
I'm all about voluntary association. You're doing your charity work. You're helping the homeless. I mean, there's so many elements here that are positive. I don't see how anyone can't.
Well, that's why they won't know what to do with you when you start representing these things. It's like you're bringing real solutions to these problems, and they can't really run up against you, but they can try to ignore you. And that's, if you ever run for office, which I hope someday you will, you'll run head on into that.
Yeah, mate, look, I get little bits and pieces now. I'm actually currently in the middle of doing a charity called Soul On, where I'm working with some former military. Those guys, right. You know, the guys who come very unsupportive, but get back from school. So
as long as you can credit them with the idea, I think you can gain some ground. And that's why yesterday's enemies is tomorrow's friend, for the most part. I mean, they might have been undermining my efforts, but if down the road they would like to take credit for it, I have no problem with that. That's why it's just a concept I've never, it's a working concept, but I've never patented it. I've never even trademarked it. So if you like what I'm doing, you can come in. I even show you how to do it on my Facebook page. This is stuff that you can buy at your local home building stores. For the most part, all of this comes from there, which allows you to do it wherever you are in the world. And then there's some regions where I might have a river. I can take that river and divert it through here, run it through our systems, and then return it to the river. I've virtually taken no water out of the system to do that, but I've cleaned it up because that rock demineralizes and it purifies the water of the contaminants that's in there. You know, to some extent, you have to look at these things in a bigger picture, and that's what I would hope the powers that be eventually are forced to see.
Well, look, we're going to have to force them because they don't take any notice of their own. Their jobs are dependent on people shutting up and doing as we're told, I think. But look, I think the project's just amazing. I really love your story. I appreciate all the work you do. It's really, really great. And if it helps spread the word, you know, with my modest Australian audience, and even one or two of them go, oh, let's try a bit more gardening. Let's try and be a little bit more self-sustaining. Let's try and be a little bit more giving to the community as opposed to going, it's up to the government to help homeless people. Go and help them yourselves, or go and help our veterans, or go and, you know, lend a hand with somebody who needs it, whether it's somebody in a hospital or whatever, you know, like just get.
You raised a good point about hospitals. So we've had people that were basically warehoused and they were given maybe a month or two to live. But if you get them out of that environment and give them a reason to sit in our convalescent homes here, which there are people that are able to do that with, because we don't have medical staff or anything, but just to be able to give them the reason to get up out of bed every day, go feed the fish, interact with what's going on the farm. You know what? Before you know it, most of these people manage to make a very, very real comeback. It's a much better way of dealing at our older generation than it is just by warehousing them and giving them this force fed every day and watching TV until they die. How hopeless is that?
Here long before their bodies give out, and it's just a sad state of affairs. Mate, look, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'll let you know the links and all those sort of things when they're up, and I'd love to share it, obviously, with all your audience.
Of course. Friend me on Facebook, and I'd like to stay involved with you and your listeners. And if you're ever in San Diego, my door is always open, my friend.
Man, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Darryl Cotton. It's been amazing having you on Resolute TV. Everybody check out 151farms.org. It's not .org.net, it's just
No, it's 151farmers.org.
There we go, sorry.
That's it. That's all right.
Check out Darryl Cotton. Get behind this gentleman, have a look at his website, and become more self-sufficient, become more self-reliant, and stand up for the causes you want to stand up for.
You got it, buddy. We'll stay in touch.
Thanks so much, Mr.
Have a wonderful evening.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I think this is an amazing episode, and if you want to catch up more with our stuff, please subscribe. Our subs are, we don't really focus too much on them. We just want to give you guys great content. But if you want to, sub. See you later.